Well, this is Dateline News and Conversation. Um, the topic tonight is going to be Trump or the USA. No matter where you look on this wonderful planet of ours, Trump, the spokesman of the hegemon, is causing trouble. All the way from China and Taiwan to Venezuela, Colombia, soon Cuba, Iran, and the entire Middle East, all across the EU, and in Ukraine against Russia, and also against Russia in places like Armenia, which is having an election in a few days. Narco Mario Rubio was there meddling and signing agreements. Trump came out and enthusiastically supported the re-election of the biggest traitor of the Armenian people, this Pashinyan. And the whole purpose of this is to basically strangle Russia, decapitate it, and further isolate China. So to discuss these things with me today is my good friend, Bruce Gagnon, coming live from Brunswick, Maine, where he's been out in his garden this morning. So apparently the snow and ice has left, and you're getting a bit of good weather. Bruce, welcome back to the show.
Yeah. Hello, Regis. Good to see you. And yeah, it's gardening time here in Maine, beginning just now. So I spent 4 hours in the garden yesterday. I'm going back when we're finished with this show to plant my tomatoes and my peppers. So anyway, I'm enjoying myself.
Well, let that be a lesson to everybody else who's feeling overwhelmed and depressed and locked indoors, either by choice or by some other reason, to relieve the stress, to relieve the depression. You got to get out into the wild, into your gardens, into the woods, and at least for a short period of time to get rid of it all. Bruce, we're not going to talk about baseball. That would again be too depressing because my team, the Boston Red Sox, is in the absolute cellar of the Eastern Division of Major League Baseball, and your team, the beloved Baltimore Orioles, is just right above them.
Yeah.
And so, it's going to be, if you're a baseball fan, it's going to be a terrible spring and summer and fall. But unlike you, I'm lucky. I can't get any of the games. And unless I go to ESPN and look at the standings, I don't even think about it. Bruce, let's get right to it. Donald Trump. I don't know if you want to talk about Trump or you want to talk about the USA. They're one and the same. They're both being controlled by other forces. But from where you're sitting, how do you see this whole thing finishing that I just described in the opening? There's trouble everywhere. And I failed to mention Africa and further down in South America. Tell me what your thoughts are.
Well, you're right. Things are bad everywhere. And, I see this back and forth with Trump, this hot and cold, stop and go about the war in Iran. I'm convinced that it's just a game to allow Israel to keep going and keep killing in Gaza and now in Lebanon. They've already unleashed over 1 million refugees throughout Lebanon. They're killing people weekly, including children. It's just a repeat of Gaza's situation in southern Lebanon. And now they're moving into the southern parts of Beirut. Netanyahu has just issued a warning to people in Beirut to clear out because they're going to be bombed. So it's really just the same old story. The same we heard, in the early days of Gaza bombing, get out of Khan Yunis, get out of Gaza City, get out of here, get out of there. And they were just bombing everywhere. It's the same story over and over again. So, Iran is saying there's no deal with the United States as long as Israel keeps bombing Lebanon. So I don't think the U.S. wants a deal. I think they're dragging it out. And I believe that eventually it's going to be war again. Yemen is saying that we're sitting back, we're watching. We believe that the U.S. and Israel are not able to ever agree to any honorable deal because they're lying and cheating all the time. And so they're saying we expect that we're going to be back in the war too very soon. And when it happens, we're coming in hard in support of Iran and Gaza and Lebanon. So I just think it's going to keep going. A lot of money is being made by the military-industrial complex and the people that own stocks in the military contractors. So sadly that's where we're going. And I'm doing every day on my blog, I'm doing reports from all over the region and around the world about these things, and giving basic reports and images of what's happening. I urge people to go there and look. It's pretty amazing now that the Global South are the biggest subscribers to my blog. Today already it's 40,000 hits there. And it's happened since this whole war has started with Iran. People are really coming and wanting to see the updates that I'm posting every day. So I spent hours and hours researching and finding the best things to add to these reports, and I hope people will take a look at them.
I'm gonna publish the location right now across the bottom of the screen. It's spaceforpeace.blogspot.com. I encourage everybody that will be watching this video to visit Bruce's blog. Bruce, it's really troubling to see what's happening. And to me, I've never been more unsettled and concerned than I am right now. And you know that I've been concerned about nuclear war for a long time. When I made my film 30 Seconds to Midnight in 2019, it was the reason I came to Russia. I was worried about an existential imminent threat of a nuclear war, if not by design, but by accident. And Bruce, today, with this conflict in Iran, with Israel, the genocidal entity of Israel is nuclear armed. If their existence is threatened, they're existent. And I think they're coming close because I think they've been heavily damaged. Bruce, right here in Russia, supposedly, allegedly, Ukraine bombed a dormitory in Lugansk. You and I have both been there. That killed, I think, some 41 students, injured. I don't know, I can't remember now. Many, many more were injured. And Bruce, they said it was a drone attack. That is freaking impossible. When you saw the scenes of the destruction, it was the same kind of thing that happened in Minab, Iran, on the first day of the war when the United States fired 3 Tomahawk missiles in succession at that school and killed all those children. And so, Bruce, this is really dangerous because everybody with any common sense and logic knows that Ukraine is not capable of that. The weapons come from the UK, France, and Germany. The weapons are all fired by military personnel from those countries, and they're guided by U.S. satellite intelligence. This has crossed an incredible red line that Russia can't ignore. Russia did respond, but we haven't seen the results of any of it in Ukraine, but nowhere else. So, Bruce, as the United States and the West continue to cross Russia's red line, support this war in Iran, Bruce, I think we're closer than ever to nuclear annihilation. What are your thoughts?
Well, this is a story that I was just working on this morning for my blog post, my updates. I learned that the Japanese are sending 4 officers to Wiesbaden, Germany, to a U.S. base where they do the intelligence, the surveillance, the reconnaissance, the preparation, the targeting for these strikes on Russia on behalf of Ukraine. And as you say, the Ukrainians are using various weapons given to them by NATO members, but then the U.S. and the allies, and now Japan, which is a NATO partner, they're not a NATO member, a NATO partner, they're now going to be helping with these targeting efforts from Wiesbaden, Germany, a place I lived when I was a kid. My stepfather was in the Air Force and he was stationed in Wiesbaden, Germany there. So it's really, to me, signaling the fact that Japanese are sending people there. It's signaling that this NATO war on Russia is expanding by the day. They're pulling in more countries, more technologies, and it's getting more dangerous. And increasingly, the attacks on Russia are going deeper and deeper and deeper, farther into Russian territory. And Russia is under increasing pressure inside its own country, amongst the people, amongst the military, amongst the politicians, to respond in a stronger way to NATO. And I think it's just a matter of time that things will expand. The Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia are all being militarized in a bigger way right now. They all border Russia, and they're being militarized to be part of this coming war with Russia that they say will happen anywhere between 2027 and 2030. This is the NATO projection as to when they're going to start a hotter war, a wider war, a European war against Russia. And it's a very dangerous time. And if this does happen, it is very, very possible that it would go nuclear in the end. And if it does, then, as you say, it's one red hot flash and we're all gone. I mean, if this isn't the time for everybody to be out on the streets, everybody to be blocking the offices of our politicians in Washington and other countries that are part of this game, as they call it, where they are planning this war against Russia and China. There's no better time, no more important time to be out on the streets demonstrating, blocking the military production centers, the military bases, and the offices of these politicians that are all leading us to this terrible, terrible end. We've got to stop them. We've got to protect the future generations, our children, our grandchildren. There's nothing more important. It doesn't matter how big your house is or what kind of fancy car you have or what kind of business card you have for your job. Those things are nothing. What really matters now is protecting the future generations. What's the most important job of a human being today on this earth? What could be more important than this?
I put headphones on, but I'm getting some kind of interference from somewhere. I hope it stops. Bruce, we can't emphasize enough how dangerous it is, and your final point that way past time that millions and millions and millions of people, not only in the United States but across the EU, in Asia, in Africa, people need to be out in force, exercising, protesting with massive, nonviolent civil disobedience, not just protesting against the decision centers, stopping businesses, stopping commerce, refusing to take part in any of this that is causing this terrible situation that we're in today. Now I want to come back and ask you, as I always do, what's the mood in the United States? I have to tell you, there are people here who think and thought that Trump was a real friend of Russia. Mm-hmm. Well, they've got to be fools if they believe that today, if they're paying attention to anything. But for the most part, people are laughing at him. They're mocking him. Social media is flooded with all of these Lego memes that are ridiculing Trump, making fun of him. Now, I don't know whether he's aware of any of that, Bruce, but the one thing that an egomaniac, a malignant narcissist can't stand is ridicule and being mocked. So, Bruce, at this late hour, and I believe it is a late hour, what is the mood of the people in the United States?
Well, I stand on the corner, me and friends, 2 to 3 days a week with signs at very busy traffic intersections. And I can tell you the honks and waves and thumbs up are increasing and growing all the time. So more and more people are responding, but we don't see them come and join us on the street. I think they're afraid. They're afraid they're going to lose their job. They're going to get kicked out of their social circle. I hear a lot of people tell me, I agree with you, but, we have these dinner parties and all our friends read the New York Times and they still, are reluctant to wrap their head around any of this stuff that our country is doing. So you hear that a lot. And so people are afraid to speak up sometimes in their social circles, in their churches, in their workplace, for fear of being isolated. I think that's a big problem here. But at the same time, Trump's numbers, his favorability numbers, are dropping to the lowest time so far since in his presidency. I saw the other day a headline that said his MAGA support is dropping quickly because he promised poor working class people that with a high school education or less, that their lives were going to be better, and they're not. They're getting worse by the day. Farmers out in the Midwest, Nebraska, Iowa, out in that region out there, They're experiencing major escalations in costs. One farmer was talking about in a video that I put on my blog that it cost, it's trucks that bring fertilizer and other supplies to his farm get 6 miles to the gallon. And then when they come to pick up his product and take it to the distribution places, it's again 6 miles to the gallon diesel. And so these farmers are having to pay the difference in the diesel prices. They've gone up dramatically, more than gasoline have. And then he's saying that the cost of fertilizers, if you can get them, are rising as well. So these farmers in this region of the middle west of the United States, in the vast majority, supported Trump in the last election. And they're now getting screwed. And so they're upset. And then the poor, the Appalachian poor, where they have nothing, no medical care, no jobs. The food is terrible. They have no future whatsoever. The education is horrible. They're descending further and further into dire poverty. So this is happening across the country, but in certain regions, it's really accelerating in a dramatic way. So there's a lot of discontent across America, but the problem is that people like Peter Thiel at Palantir, they say that democracy isn't important anymore. What's important is to let these big tech guys from Silicon Valley, let them run the country because they're smarter than everybody else. They tend to be Zionists. They're kind of like believers that the rest of us are Amalek. You know, we're worthless eaters, and it doesn't really matter. In fact, the sooner we die, the better. So this is the kind of struggle that we're having right now, this confrontation between the people on the one hand and these big tech fools, arrogant people, genocidal supporters, not only in Gaza or Sudan or Lebanon now, but also here in the United States. Because, you know, genocide can also be defined as people increasingly being starved because their caloric intake is being reduced by cutbacks in social programs and other things like that, or just the sheer cost of food as prices go higher and higher. So this is a big problem right now. And another place that I'm really worried about is Cuba. You mentioned in the beginning of the show, the United States has been starving Cuba since the revolution in the early 60s. And right now, the Trump administration is threatening Cuba with an invasion. Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, is continually threatening Cuba with an invasion. They're sending more and more naval vessels right around off the shores of Cuba. And I'm really worried about that a lot. You know, Trump needs a victory. You know, he's losing in Iran. He says he's stopped all these wars, but he hasn't stopped any of them. Now, I think he's looking for another kind of Venezuela quick incursion and he wants to grab Fidel Castro's brother Raul, and what is he, 94 years old, I think. He wants to go in and arrest him. You know, it's just ridiculous. So the United States is an outlaw nation controlled by the 1%, the corporate elite, and the Israeli Zionists who essentially through AIPAC control the Congress of the United States. This is who's running our country today. And they're out there trying to control the world, increasingly going after Latin America. They've essentially taken control of Venezuela. They're going after Cuba. Netanyahu has just bought up the water systems in Argentina, the national water system, and they're moving 300,000 Zionists into Argentina, into Patagonia. So, I mean, Israel is moving increasingly into Latin America. I think they know that their project in Israel is going to die. It's fading quickly. World support for Israel is diminishing dramatically. And so they're working with the US to take control of Latin America and move a lot of their people there. So it's dangerous times we're in right now. People really need to become aware of what's happening.
I think more and more people are waking up, Bruce. I want to comment on a number of things. I'll start with the last one. These Zionists, they've been fleeing Israel, well, for a long time now, but certainly since the first war last year. They don't feel secure there anymore. They've been going to places like Cyprus. They've been going to places like Thailand by the tens of thousands. And when they go, they're buying up real estate and expensive, exclusive real estate. They're even well, they've been in, and they're even planning on moving to Ukraine, this Greater Israel project. And then, you know, there's supposedly millions of Jews in Russia. I don't know how many of them would be classified as Zionists, but who knows? You know, will be attacked for being anti-Semitic, but that's not working anymore anywhere. People have seen that mask has really been torn to shreds. I want to know more about the economic situation as you perceive it in the United States. You alluded to it in reference to farmers not being able to get fertilizers. You know, the cost of diesel is gone up, and has that yet hit the local supermarkets, like in places like Brunswick, Maine, where you live? Because, you know, what the stranglehold in the Straits of Hormuz doesn't appear to end pretty soon, but from what I'm reading, people are beginning to feel it all over the world. So what are you feeling in Brunswick, Maine, in terms of food availability, in terms of the prices, the price of gas, heating fuel? Thank God winter is over there now, but I know we did shows during the winter, and you had your thermostat turned way down. You were bundled up in sweaters and hoodies like this one I'm wearing, which is yours. And so what's inflation doing to really a poor state like Maine? And then if you could, the second part of that, comment on what you know, that what's happening all across the rest of the United States.
Things are really getting bad here in Maine, and I think most other states too. First of all, the price of rental housing is going up dramatically. People can't afford it anymore. They're having to go without heat and food in order to pay for their housing. The cost of electricity is going up dramatically here in Maine, and I'm sure other places around the country as well. And again, people are having to have less heat during the wintertime because of the cost of whether it's electricity or oil heat. Maine uses a lot of oil furnaces. So all those costs are really rising dramatically. And you go to the grocery store, 2 or 3 bags at a grocery store used to cost you maybe $60, maybe $70. Now it's over $100 routinely. And so the price of food is going up. People are not buying as much meat as they used to. I don't buy, and we don't really eat meat hardly at all in our house here. But I do like to look at the prices when I go to the grocery store. And just a roast now costs $15 or $20. you know, a chicken is increasingly expensive, so just basic foodstuffs are really, really dramatically expensive now. And so I think people are hurting, and they're using their credit cards and running up a lot of debt that they can't ever hope to pay for. Just like our country is now $38 trillion in debt, the American people increasingly are facing massive debt on their credit cards. So it's a gloomy future right now, and none of the politicians, whether they're Republican or Democrat, are really offering much solution to any of this stuff. Because the only solution really is to take down this capitalist system that we have that is draining the life out of the people and the planet. So unless we move towards a socialist economy, a socialist system, then there's no way out of this. And when you listen to the Democrats who are trying to get back into office this coming November, and they very well might, just because people are so angry at Trump. But if they think the Democrats are going to fix things for us, they're not. And so that's another area that we're really weak on in this country right now is the articulation for the need for a socialist system, rather than this bloody, blood-sucking capitalist system.
I want to follow up on a couple of things you just mentioned. There are economists from the United States, people like Jamie Dimon, heads of some of the big banks in New York, European economists, are predicting an economic collapse of the Western economic capitalist system. I've been predicting, and I'm not an economist, but I'm an observer of what's going on. You mentioned a $38 trillion debt, 1 point something military budget that the military wants another $500 million more. As you mentioned, gutting of the social programs, gutting of education, the infrastructure is falling apart. And I'm going to get to the political situation in a minute. But as you mentioned, there seems to be no solution. Bruce, I don't know whether you agree with me or not. I think the United States is on the verge of a total economic collapse, the collapse of the system, and that will include the political system.
Yeah.
We'll come to the political situation in a minute. But do you think, with everything that you've just described and we're talking about, that the United States could be on the verge of an economic collapse?
Yeah, I think so. Recently, when Trump said he wanted a $1.5 trillion military budget for this year, he said this very clearly, that we can't afford to keep paying for Medicare and Medicaid. Medicare is health care for people over 65, and Medicaid is medical care for people with mental disabilities, physical disabilities, and the very poor. Both systems are very weak. They don't cover everything, but it's something. But anyway, Trump said, and they're nationally funded. Trump said that he's going to have the states pay for these, Medicare and Medicaid, because we can't afford these military spending and these social programs. Well, if I can tell you here in Maine, if they throw Medicare and Medicaid into the hands of the Maine government, there's no money to deal with it. It's done. It's over. So senior citizens, the poor, no health care. That's where we're heading. At the same time, they want to privatize Social Security. And if they do that, people like me who are living, and my wife, we're living on Social Security, we got nothing. So this is the danger that we now face. And they're also talking about digital money, requiring everybody to stop using the dollar bill and the coins and everything else and switch to this digital economy where everything is computerized. And all they have to do, if they don't like you, if you're, talking, socialism and things like that, they could just turn you off on the computer and you can't go into your bank account. It's already happening in Europe. People that are critical about Israeli policy vis-a-vis Palestine have had their bank accounts frozen in Europe. And they can't get their money. It's their money and they can't get access to it. That's the digital economy that the globalists are trying to put the whole world on now. That's a big danger. We can't let that happen. We have to fight against that too. And then the data centers that are being built that are massive, where they can put all this digital economy and all the surveillance state, all this information into these huge data centers that are polluting as hell, need the water. They're going to drain the water supply to keep the power running at these places. I mean, everything they're doing is just absolutely insane and detrimental to life at the present time and also in the future.
Digital currency. You're right. It has gone global. Russia now has digital currency. Fortunately, they're still issuing hard cash, notes, and coins. But at any time, an unfriendly government could stop printing money, and then people have got to use the digital. It's really, on one hand, wonderful. You can transfer money, you can pay bills. You can buy tickets, for the train or whatever you want. I mean, it's like, wow, this is great. I don't have to go to the bank anymore. Well, sounds great. But then, Bruce, digital everything, connecting the data centers. They already know everything about your bank account or bank accounts. They're collecting information on people everywhere. You have to have a digital ID. They're collecting facial recognition and biometrics. Even here in Russia, everybody has to do this biometric imaging to be able to be a part of this national system they call Gosusluji, which has many good benefits. It's supposed to connect all kinds of things, but you know what? With an unfriendly government, all of that could change. And as you mentioned, it's happening all over the world. China already has it all completely under control. They even have what you were referring to. If you're not a good person, you do bad things, you have a credit score. And based on your credit score, plus or minus, you can be forbidden from doing, even taking public transportation. That's where this could go. A totalitarian system run by a handful of extremely wealthy technocrats or financial big shots.
And that's what we have in the United States today. We have a financial system, a government that is run by a handful of elites and tech bros who think they're the godsend, and that's what we have. And now they want to get their hands essentially to control the money supply directly through their technologies. There's two things else I want to say about two other parts of the world, if I can jump in here with this. Number one, the recent war in Mali. I don't know how much people know about it, but it's really important. The French were kicked out of Mali and Burkina Faso, and Niger. And in Mali, in the case of Mali, they were mining gold and I believe lithium. And they're not very happy about that. You know, Mali has huge gold mines. France has one of the largest stocks of gold in the world in their banks, but they don't have any gold in their country. They've got it all by stealing it from places like Mali over years and years and years. Well, so they got kicked out, and France is not happy about it. So France has organized Al-Qaeda type terrorists to start a war against Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger to try to recover control of those places. And guess who's come in to help France in Mali? Ukraine. Ukrainian troops are now sent as mercenaries to join the jihadi terrorists working for France to try to take over Mali. This is unbelievable. This is what Europe is still doing, colonial powers trying to hang on to their power in places like Africa. Now, I want to go to Korea, South Korea for a moment. There's an aerospace corporation in South Korea called Hanwha. They make missiles and satellites and all kinds of things like that. And they're located, their big headquarters is in the central part of the mainland of South Korea. But recently they've opened operations in a place you and I love and know a lot about, is Jeju Island. The island just south of the Korean Peninsula. And on Jeju, they built a manufacturing place to make satellites. And they're also starting to do, just off the coast on like an oil rig type platform, start to do launches of military satellites for the government. And the people on Jeju are very angry about it, and they're organizing. Well, just today I saw a report that a Hanwha factory on the mainland in the center of the country had a major explosion and 5 people were killed. So Hanwha is moving into some very dangerous territory. They're doing a lot of bad things in South Korea, and they're being connected to this overall US, NATO, globalist war machine that is aimed at both Russia and China. So our friends organizing there in South Korea are in the middle of this whole fight too. And so I wanted to acknowledge that as part of this show as well.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is not a regional, it's not a combination of regional crises, wars, and events. It's all connected. It's all connected. We've been talking about that for years, Bruce. It's all connected. Most people can't see that, but this is, I mean, you can talk about the globalists, you can talk about the Zionists, whoever it is, that's the puppet master is controlling all of this. None of it is happening by accident. It's all by design, including this new Ebola outbreak, which is COVID 2.0. It's coming. You can see it. I mean, you got to be stupid not to recognize this. You know, this friend of mine published an article just yesterday. Sylvia Demarest, who's been on my show many times. She's a brilliant retired attorney from Dallas, Texas now. She grew up in poverty and worked her way through school and law school, and she's one of the most brilliant people I know. I don't know if she coined the phrase, but it was in the title of her article, Polycrisis. Mm. Many crises are all converging like the perfect storm that is already tearing apart parts of the world because of the chokehold on the Straits of Hormuz, and the thing I want to finish on, Bruce, with the time that we have left, is I said I would come back to the political situation. We can focus on the United States, but it's the same damn thing in all of Europe. It's the same thing that the United States and the Europeans have been trying to do to places like the Republic of Georgia, Armenia, the Caucasus, putting a stranglehold on these governments, not allowing the people to have a say and rigging the elections. But I want to focus now on the United States, because most people see this as, they think it's the power center of the world. It really isn't. I think the United States has been used as a battering ram for decades and decades in the hands of powerful centers like the City of London, the Rothschilds, the Zionists, whoever you want to call them. But Bruce, let's focus now on the political class in the United States. We talked about the maybe imminent collapse of the economic system. From where I'm sitting now in Russia, I look at what little I read about the United States, but the entire political class, the entire political system, not only is corrupt, it's collapsing, it's useless. And yet the American people, they hate Trump. They voted for him. Now they hate him. And so they're going to go to the polls again, and they're going to vote again, hoping that the Democrats are going to save them. How many years have we seen this happen, Bruce? Do you see, along with the economic collapse, that it will also be a collapse of the entire United States political system? What do you think?
No, I can't predict what's going to happen, but you see the signs. You know, the Native Americans used to say, put your ear to the railroad tracks and hear the train coming. For them, when they could hear the train coming, they knew that more troops were coming and to kill them.
Let me interrupt. We just had an interruption with the internet. Could you start your response, your answer to my question about a political collapse in the United States?
All right. What I said was, I can't predict the future, but you can see the signs. And as an example, I said the Native Americans used to say, put your ear to the railroad tracks and hear the train coming. What that meant for them was that when they heard the train, the buzz on the tracks, they knew that more troops were coming to kill them and put them on reservations. But also they had shooters on the train that were destroying the buffalo. As the train would go through the plains areas, they would shoot the buffalo, the food source, the clothing source of the native people out west. And so that's what it feels like today, in a way. Maybe not quite as dramatic and not quite as evident to a lot of people, but everything around us seems to be getting to the point where they're making it virtually impossible to live. You know, the water's contaminated in so many places. The air is increasingly contaminated. The price of food is increasingly difficult. Access to real justice in America anymore is tough. Anyway, so in the consolidation of power and the corruption is massive, especially within this administration. They're stealing money like you would not believe and handing it to their friends at the expense of the American people. So that has to collapse. It's inevitable that it's going to collapse. And it's inevitable that there's going to be some kind of revolt. And that's why I think for so many years they've been giving excess military hardware to the local police departments around the country. Even a town like Brunswick, where 20,000 people live in this community. It's a peaceful town and everything. The police now have one of those big, massive big armored vehicles, you know, that you use in riots and all that kind of thing. What for? I mean, our roads have potholes like crazy. You could lose an axle every day of the week driving through some of these the roads around Maine. But there's no money to fix that. But now the police are armed to the teeth, you know, so they know it's coming and they're preparing for it. And when is it going to happen? Sooner probably than we think. You know, recently we're seeing that I think it was 5,000 people were laid off at Facebook, and every big company in the country is laying off people right now, young people. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these speakers at the graduation ceremonies all over America this year were being booed dramatically by young people in the audience because they know it's all bullshit anymore. They're not stupid. They know what's going on. And this is the rising of the young people's anger is one of the good things that's happening today. And their level of consciousness expanding is dramatic. So, you know, there's like anything, there's a lot of bad things that are happening, but there's also some good signs, younger people figuring it out. And some of the older people, I'm sad to say, aren't as active as they should be in concert with the young people, in collaboration and solidarity, working with them, helping to fund them, helping to support them, and going to their events, and standing with them. Getting arrested with them. So this is what we need right now. You know, older people that are, you know, saying things like, well, you know, I'm old. You know, I did that in the 60s. It's the young people's turn. No. That's not the way it works. Look what's happening in Bolivia right now. Old and young together, getting rid of their president. Strikes moving into 7-8 weeks now, blocking roads all across the country. Because their country is so corrupt. And now the Pentagon, the US military, is telling them that the Bolivian government has to call out the military and shut these strikes down. It's getting out of hand. You know, so this is what America's future is going to look like too. And we all are called to the line, you know, when the crunch comes down. There's no age is not a ticket out of this struggle, you know. We all have to be there.
You know, Bruce, one of the things, you know, I have talked about over the years about the peace movement. It's been infiltrated. You know, many of the organizations that we belong to, some of the organizations we belong to, have been infiltrated by, you know, the CIA, the FBI, other groups designed to create confusion, chaos, disruption. And that's one of the reasons why the peace movement is so divided. I think there's another reason, and it has to do with ego. There's a lot of huge egos that had some of these organizations, and they just refused to collaborate with each other. You know, you mentioned this is a time for everybody, young and old, to be out in the streets. And what many peace activists and other activists are calling for is nonviolent disobedience nationwide and worldwide in order to bring this system down. Bruce, I don't know quite how to end this.
Well, let me say this. Using the words of the great American novelist Mark Twain, you know, he was a big supporter of the U.S. invasion of the Philippines in the early days. But he quickly saw that it was wrong and became an anti-imperialist and became the president of the Anti-Imperialist Society in America. I try not to use the word peace movement anymore. I consider myself an anti-imperialist, and I'm trying to use that word instead of the peace movement, because the peace movement doesn't really say enough, the word peace movement. So anyway, but we have to follow some of the great leaders that we've had in this country, like Mark Twain, and begin to really understand that the United States government is an imperialist nation, and it's trying to shackle the people of the world to benefit the capitalist system. It comes down to that.
Yeah, well, Mark Twain, Martin Luther King, the Kennedy brothers, they all lost their lives because they went against the man, went against the system. One of my favorite authors is Henry David Thoreau, and I have this quote in the signature file on my email. He famously said around 1865, 19th century, how does it become a man to behave towards the American government today in 1865? He says, I answer that he cannot without disgrace be associated with it. Bruce, 1865. I have no idea what the hell was going on back there, but Henry David Thoreau came out of the woods at Walden Pond, and he said, it's a disgrace to be associated with the United States government today in 1865. Bruce, the only hope.
The Civil War was going on in 1865. That's what was happening.
Yeah. Anyway,
and we haven't resolved those contradictions yet. So
no, you're right. We haven't. And there's a lot of people that are based on everything you were talking about, the economy, the political situation in the United States. The United States not only is on the verge of an economic and political collapse, it's on the verge of another civil war. And so no matter where you look, there's a lot of trouble. However, Bruce, there's a glimmer of hope because of people like you and the millions of others around the world who are daily putting their lives on the line, is hopeful that humanity, little by little, is waking up to this injustice, to this evil that would rob us all not only of our humanity, but life on this planet. Bruce, I want to finish on this note. You've been my best friend, really, for 20 years now. I want people to know that tomorrow you'll be heading down to Mordor, the evil capital of the United States, to stand trial for being arrested at the Pentagon. I take my hat off to you, Bruce. I salute you. And I want people to know that you told me offline that you actually enjoy getting arrested.
Let me say this, Regis. I'll be going down there with my wife, Mary Beth Sullivan, and two other Maine friends, Lisa Savage, who you interview from time to time, and her husband, Mark Roman. We all were part of a group of 27 people that were arrested at the Pentagon in, I guess it was around April. So we're going to Alexandria, Virginia, just on the other side of the border from DC, to federal court for, it won't be a trial, it's a hearing where they will they'll ask for our plea, and then they'll say, well, this is your charge. And then it's possible trial could come from that. We don't know yet. So anyway, that's where we're going. But we're going to, before we go into the courthouse, we're going to have a protest outside the courthouse to continue speaking out against this war machine that is killing the planet.
Well, I can't thank you enough for being my friend, for being a witness to peace and justice and anti-imperialism around the world. We got to do this again, Bruce, sooner than later.
All right, Regis. Thanks a lot. You take care.